Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us once again for Wednesday's edition of Alaska Weather. Up first, we've got, again, goes into effect today, the Southeast Alaska Weather Zone Realignment. And finally, after days of mentioning this is the day it actually kicks in for the National Weather Service Juneau Forecast Office. You can see the map on the right there showing the outlined areas of the new zones. And affects public and fire, but no marine zones, and transparent to most users. And again, the reason for this is it uses borough and census boundaries to help eliminate the overwarning of National Weather Service alerts across Southeast Alaska. Again, if you have questions, comments, concerns, contact juneau.weather@noaa.gov for more detailed information. And again, is in effect starting today. Moving on to the big storm coming into the Aleutians and Bering Sea. High winds in the Bering Sea expected for the western central Aleutians. There's a high wind watch out that goes into effect Thursday evening through Friday morning. For southwest winds, 50 to 65 miles an hour with gusts 75 to 95 miles an hour possible. And of course, the strong winds also create hazardous conditions across the marine zones as well. So looking at the areas with high wind watches out now, again, the western Aleutians there, and actually extends over toward the eastern Aleutians, but it's everywhere west of Unmak Island is under the high wind watch. And that again goes into effect Thursday evening and remains out through Friday morning, so about midday Friday. And that's for southwest winds 50, gusting 90, 95 miles an hour, possibly. And for the Pribilofs, that kicks into effect Friday morning. Again, a high wind watch there for about the same thing, southwest winds 50 miles an hour, gusting 85 miles an hour. And then up to the north there, St. Lawrence Island, that high wind watch there a little later. Of course, with the system moving from southwest to northeast, it's all going to be a little bit later. And Friday afternoon is when this warning takes effect, or when the watch takes effect, excuse me. Not a warning, a watch at this point in time. Probably will be a warning, though, before it's over, maybe tomorrow. But right now, just a watch. And that means possibly high winds as opposed to the warning, which means they're imminent or occurring currently. Anyway, that's for east winds there on the north side of the low, anywhere from 35, gusting 75 miles an hour. And then for the Yukon Delta coast and the coast of Norton Sound there, that's Friday afternoon through Saturday, a little bit later yet. And that's for south winds 35 to 55 miles an hour with gusts to 75 miles an hour. So quite a big storm coming into the Aleutians and Bering Sea over the next couple of days. And satellite imagery showing that persistent front along the eastern North Gulf Coast edging eastward, also weakening, just a narrow band of rain with it now. Nothing like it was earlier on, but still Dry Bay picked up 1 1/3 inches of rain in a 12-hour period ending at mid-afternoon today. Haines had about a half an inch of precipitation, only a quarter of an inch back at Yakutat, and lighter amounts, pretty light over south central Alaska and the North Gulf Coast today, Prince William Sound. You can see the heavier clouds up in the Tanana Valley there, and that from about Denali Park up into the Fairbanks area. And actually into the Yukon Flats had some decent rainfall amounts today. Nenana had about 0.84 inches, again a 12-hour amount ending at mid-afternoon today, while Fairbanks picked up about half an inch. And then farther to the north there, Beaver about 0.4 of an inch, and Chalkyitsik roughly a third of an inch or so. And then it dried out over the western part of the state. Still some clouds, isolated showers, but nothing too significant. And then that front now pushing onto the southwest coast leaves mid and high level clouds. Not a whole lot of rain falling with that yet, and probably won't be with this first system. Probably more precipitation with the next one, but should see some pretty good rainfall as that low center you can see kind of spinning up there over the Bering Sea as it tracks eastward up to 978 millibars, and that warm front starting to spread rain into the Nunivak Island area. Only about 1 to 2/10 of an inch fell on the Pribilofs as the warm front moved by. You'll get some more when the cold front pushes in. Otherwise, there's that weakening front, persistent though, with south to north flow. It's lying just about parallel to the wind flow there, so it's very slow moving, but again, narrowing, thinning out, and weakening. And that'll eventually kick eastward, the whole pattern shifting eastward with the storminess coming into the Bering Sea areas. And then low pressure near Eagle, that's what brought the rainfall into the Tanana Valley today up to the Yukon Flats area. And just some scattered showers over the western part of the state. Kind of a break sunshine, northern Cook Inlet into the Anchorage area. Otherwise, tonight, it'll stay that way, variably cloudy here for south central Alaska, basically dry. Rain becoming more showery, but persisting there for the Tanana Valley on up to the southern slopes of the Brooks Range. Maybe a few showers on the Arctic coast. And rain and showers out front finally kicking into the Panhandle there, bring some light rain even down to the southern areas with probably some moderate rain with gusty winds into the southwest coast as that low center, even though it's weakening, will hold together enough to bring some wind and rain. Pretty good amounts mainly over the Yukon Delta, less amounts over the Kuskokwim Delta, light rain at times for the Bristol Bay Area and a little breezy, and then pretty light rainfall, it looks like, for the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, and then more rain with that warm front, with that next big storm out to the southwest. You can see for tomorrow, that 952 millibar low tracks northeastward to just south of Shimian at 2 in the afternoon. So look for storm force winds, rain heavy at times with that, and then lighter amounts out toward the eastern Aleutians. Front pushes into the Kuskokwim Valley, so periods of rain there extending back up into the Kobuk and Selawik Valley, with light rain into the Noatak Valley along the northwest coast, Kotzebue, wet over the Seward Peninsula and Norton Sound, but winds on the light side. In fact, that system weakening pretty well there. Just scattered showers over the eastern interior with variable to mostly cloudy skies, and still periods of light rain, southern Panhandle, or showers across the entire area there of the southeast coast with, I believe, IFR flying conditions in the forecast for tomorrow. Just some scattered showers along the North Gulf Coast, tending to increase late in the afternoon. Again, especially for Cook Inlet, rain for Kodiak. Next day, that system's pretty much gone. Just some scattered showers over the Panhandle there. And then the next big system, actually weakening now, may bottom out at like 940 millibars as it tracks north into the southwest Bering, then starts weakening Friday afternoon, but still a very tight pressure field associated with that. And again, the high wind watches with starting to improve, lightening up in the afternoon Friday for the Aleutians, but still pretty windy there for the Pribilofs. And then the high wind warning looks like strongest winds along the coast, Nunivak Island, Yukon Delta coast, of course, St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait coast. Also high surf watches or coastal flood watches out with the strong winds for St. Lawrence Island and the south coast of the Seward Peninsula, Yukon Delta coast as well with this, given the strong winds there and that southwest to northeast or south to north fetch of winds. Anyway, the front, as it pulls away from the low center, will be weakening, but holds together enough to at least spread some rain into Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Susitna Valley, kind of holding off in the Madanuska Valley, Copper River Basin, some sunshine over the central and northern interior, even the Arctic coast, break kind of the calm before the storm there. And it looks like that system will track northeastward near or just west of the Bering Strait there, and then track up into the Chukchi Sea by Saturday afternoon and start to weaken. Of course, lost wind and rain with that as it pulls northeastward there. And looking at lows for tonight, 40s everywhere over southern Alaska except Copper River Basin, mid-30s, near 40 for Valdez. Highs tomorrow in the 50s, upper 50s, Homer to Kodiak, as well as the Panhandle near 60 in the south, mid-50s in the north, followed by lows in the 40s once again. And about 40 for the Copper River Basin, lower 40s Kuskokwim Valley, near 50 for Kodiak. Highs on Friday, mid-50s most everywhere, a little cooler in the Susitna Valley, near 60 Kodiak and Sand Point, or actually that's Chignik, 61, near 60 over the southern Panhandle, upper 50s to the north. And for the Arctic coast, lows in the mid-30s tonight, North Slope and Brooks Range as well, upper 30s to mid-40s south of the Brooks Range. And for highs tomorrow, upper 40s, lower 50s, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, mostly in the 40s for the North Slope and Arctic coast, with some 50s over the North Slope, and 55 to 60 in the central interior, upper 50s over toward the border, followed by lows mid-30s, Arctic coast to the Brooks Range, and mid-30s to mid-40s south of the mountains there. Mildest out toward Nome, and highs on Friday afternoon, 55 to 60 again over the central and eastern interior, lower to mid-50s out to the west, and in the 40s to lower 50s over the North Slope and most of the Arctic coast. Out to the southwest Bering Sea, lows tonight, 40s to lower 50s, and mid-40s St. Lawrence Island, upper 40s for the southwest coast. Highs tomorrow, lower 50s for the southwest coastal areas. Looking at 61 for Unalaska, 62 for Adak, and then lows Friday morning in the 40s most everywhere, followed by highs in the 50s and then lower 60s for Dutch Harbor to the Alaska Peninsula.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, for Thursday morning, that first system pushing some IFR into the southwest interior, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, and IFR covering the southern Bering Sea, Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, into the Kuskokwim Valley, southwest Kodiak Island, more IFR for the Panhandle, and an area of IFR up over the east central interior to the eastern Arctic coast, wrapping back around to the central and western Arctic coast with some areas of VFR, as you can see, over the interior, all the way down to the North Gulf Coast. And then for the afternoon, that area of IFR pushes into south central Alaska, western Prince William Sound, all of Kodiak Island. A little bit of improvement to marginal VFR over portions of the Aleutians, but basically the southern Bering Sea staying IFR. Some VFR behind the front there. St. Matthew Island pushing in across Nunivak Island to right along the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta coast. Otherwise, marginal VFR, North Slope Arctic coast. VFR, eastern interior, and most of the Panhandle IFR, and the North Gulf Coast marginal. And then for Friday morning, that area pushes eastward and northeastward, now up along the western Arctic coast, southeastward there, as you can see, across the Tanana Valley, and all the way down to the North Gulf Coast, Susitna, Manuska Valley, improving from the west-southwest to marginal VFR. Could be some areas of VFR in that area as well, from Cook Inlet northwestward to the Seward Peninsula. And then the stronger system puts a narrow band of IFR, northern Bering Sea, that expands as it approaches the southwest coast, and from the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, moving into Sitkinak in the morning hours, another round coming into the far western Aleutians. And then for Friday afternoon, that area moves northeastward into St. Matthew Island, approaching St. Lawrence Island. More IFR there over the western interior from Kotzebue Sound, right on down into Bristol Bay, across the Kuskokwim Valley there into central and southern Cook Inlet, covering Kodiak Island, and marginal VFR south of the Alaska Range to the Prince William Sound North Gulf Coast area, marginal for the Panhandle, and a pretty good area of VFR over the north or central and eastern interior, north of the Alaska Range and south of the Brooks Range, as well as a lot of VFR coming into the Aleutians and up along the southwest coast. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR to VFR. Adigan, though, kind of a marginal day throughout the Thursday time frame. Lake Clark and Merrill, look IFR. Mostly IFR for rainy and windy. Starting out IFR, looks like there'll be some improvement throughout the day and into the afternoon. Same thing for Isabel. And for Mentasta, optimistically going VFR for the day. And Tanita, VFR. Just look for a downward trend in conditions as that next batch of moisture pushes eastward. Probably going IFR late in the day. Portage, marginal VFR to IFR. Chilkoot and White, I'll go marginal VFR for those two passes. And for freezing levels, quite a gradient out over the Bering Sea, 4 to 12,000 feet just north of the central Aleutians. Otherwise, about 4,000 feet or so across mainland Alaska, 6 to 8,000 feet over the southern Panhandle, 2 to 4,000 along the Arctic coast. And icing showing areas of quite an extensive area of at least isolated moderate icing coming in with some spotty areas of considerable moderate there into the interior. And then with that next system, heavier or more extensive areas of considerable moderate rime icing, but with the warm air associated with that system, that's going to be above 12, maybe even 13,000 feet or so. And from there, looking at the jet stream, first system tracks up to the northeast to just off the northwest coast there, and just west of Kotzebue, 150 knot west-northwest jet there right across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta coastline, another upper low off the southern panhandle, southwest flow of 150 knots, up to 105 knots at 9,000 feet, quite an intense low there approaching Shimei and Attu, 40 knot southwest winds over the southwest interior, 3,000 feet, the first low into Norton Sound at this elevation. And we've got some 35 knot southerlies there, Cook Inlet into the Susitna Valley, southwest 40 knots, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, and 90 knot southwest winds right up just south of the western Aleutians there, 60 knot westerlies just south. Extensive moderate chop below 8,000 feet.
We have a big solar flare coming in, so we're out here on an aurora hunt. It's a CME, it's a dynamite, coronal mass ejection. It's when the sun, it kicks off energy in these explosions that are larger than the Earth, explosion type things, coming off of sunspots. And if that energy is pointing straight at the Earth, it gets caught up in our magnetic field, and that energy, electrons, come down our magnetic field, collide with oxygen up there about 50 or a couple hundred miles high, and that's what generates the northern lights. My job as the photographer and the aurora hunter is to be in position, you know, location, location, location. And I like to think I'm composing. Mother Nature, it's a bit of a teamwork thing, you know, she's got to put on the show, but I have to be in the right position and of course with the right tools and the know-how. I've stopped keeping track of how much time I spend out here in terms of hours. It's more in terms of weeks or months, or at this point years now. You know, it was always in me. Even when I was a kid growing up in the lower 48, I would spend nights sleeping on our trampoline, just staring at the stars. I'm in 4th grade and I'm going, wow, look at those stars. And I'd see how many nights in a row I could sleep on the trampoline. And I think my record was 23 nights in a row. So I was doing kind of strange things for an Iowa country boy. I can remember specifically the very first time I saw the Northern Lights. It was 1989, the peak of the solar cycle, and I was going to graduate school in Laramie, Wyoming. And all of a sudden we had heard the Northern Lights were out. It's like, what are those? I'd never really seen them before. And my goodness gracious, we were on top of a mountain in the Laramie Range and they were turning blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the very first picture I took, that was 1990. Now, an old film camera, Pentax K1000 on a plastic Kmart tripod. Took 2 shots on slide film and got them back. And I thought, oh my gosh, this beautiful green thing swirling about. And from that moment, I was hooked. When I realized that you could preserve the auroras on film, I just experimented a ton. I'd had a heaping stack of slides, the no good ones. The experiments gone wrong, you know, too dark, fuzzy, out of focus, too light. I had this huge garbage can full of excess slide film, and that was just the learning curve. Well, when I go out here, it's all about getting the shot. And my wife and I, we've called it the hero shot. But the hero shot is the one where you just come home and you go, look at this. And everyone goes, wow, and you feel like a hero. It's a wonderful feeling, you know. It's good for the ego, of course. It's good for the business. But if you kind of strip that away, it's good for what's inside you, because that's really the hero moment in nature. And Mother Nature's putting on this show that is just mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. When I first resigned from my day job, that was in 1996, and decided I wanted to become a full-time aurora hunter, my goal from that moment and to this day still is to get one hero shot a year. I figured, and I'm talking the kind that somebody wants to buy from you and hang on their wall, where the auroras are extremely bright, very active, turning colors, where you can't believe your eyes. If you get to preserve a little sample of that with a photograph, well, it's what we call the hero shot. Wow, what a feeling. I mean, oh, you're elevated, levitating, you are lifted up. Your spirits are so high that I love that feeling. And I think I get that so much from seeing cool things in nature that I will go way out of my way to find that. And I can, the next day, well, I'll be just laying there thinking about it and thinking how lucky I was, or how fortunate. Of course, I just spent 2 weeks sitting there staring at the sky and not seeing anything, so you got to remember that luck is kind of a relative term, but I still just feel incredibly lucky to be even in a position to where I could have been there, taken a photograph of it, and just mainly experienced it. Well, that feeling could last for days.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And on to the coastal water forecast. Not bad wind-wise here along the southeast coast, over the inside waters as well. For the south coast, west winds at 10 knots, seas 5 feet. For the north coast, south to southeast winds at 10 knots. And the inside waters looking pretty good tomorrow, all out of the south at about 10 knots with slight seas. And then for the day on Friday, we've got south to west winds, 10 knots for the south coast. Pick it up a little bit for the north coast, but not too much. South to southeast at 15 knots, seas up to 8 to 10 feet. And no change over the inside waters. South winds at 10 knots, seas 2 feet. And for Prince William Sound and the eastern North Gulf Coast, variable winds at 10 knots with 2 to 5 foot seas. Western North Gulf Coast, south winds at 15 knots, Barren Islands south at 20. Small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay and southern Cook Inlet for south to southeast winds at 25 knots. Northern Cook Inlet south at 20. And for Friday, Prince William Sound, east winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet. Eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast winds at 20 knots. Western North Gulf Coast, light and variable winds at 10 knots, seas 5 feet. Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, south winds 15 knots, and for Cook Inlet, south winds at 20 knots, seas 4 to 5 feet. Kodiak Island, small craft advisories for Thursday, south to southwest winds 25 knots, small craft advisories for the Alaska Peninsula for south to southwest winds 25 to 30 knots, and Bristol Bay, southwest winds 30 knots, seas 8 feet. And for Bristol Bay on Friday, southwest winds 30 knots, seas up to 13 feet now. And for the Alaska Peninsula, gale warnings for southwest winds 30 to 35 knots, seas building to 22 feet on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Kodiak Island, west winds 25 knots, seas 10 feet. Eastern Aleutians Thursday, southwest winds 25 to 30 knots, seas 10 to 12 feet. Gale warnings for the Central Aleutians, southwest winds 35 to 45 knots. And storm warnings for the western Aleutians from Kiska to Shimia, east winds 55 knots, Ramchitka Island south winds 55 knots. And for the day Friday, storm warnings for the western and central Aleutians for Adak and Atka, southwest winds 45 to 55 knots, seas over 30 feet. Western Aleutians 50 to 60 knot winds from the west-southwest. And for the eastern Aleutians, gale warnings, southwest winds 35 to 45 knots, 18 to 27 foot seas. For the southwest coast Thursday, southwest winds 30 to 35 knots, west 25 knot winds for the Pribilofs, north 25 for St. Lawrence Island, west 30 for St. Matthew Island. Big increase in the winds. Storm warnings, high-end storm warnings. Pribilof Island, southwest 60 knots, seas 37 feet, south 60 knots for the St. Matthew Island area. Storm warnings along the southwest coast for 55 knot winds. Gale warning St. Lawrence Island, east winds 35 knots. For the Arctic coast tomorrow, east winds 25 knots from Wales to Cape Thompson, northeast at 20. And then for the day on Friday, from Wales to Cape Beaufort, east winds 25 to 30 knots, small craft advisories there. Otherwise, the remainder of the Arctic coast, winds coming down a little bit, east 20 to 25 knots, seas 6 to 7 feet. And for tonight, again, first storm weakening now as it pushes in. A fair amount of rain will come into the Yukon Delta and even the Kuskokwim Delta with periods of light rain and fog into Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, kind of just dragging into the Aleutians with a main band of moisture to the north until you hit the warm front out west. And a couple of troughs keep it unsettled over the Panhandle. Some showers, rain becoming more showery over the Tanana Valley up into the upper Yukon Flats area. And for Thursday, that system slowly moves inland, continues to slowly weaken, and they'll spread rain into Cook Inlet during the afternoon. Rain for Kodiak Island, periods of rain, fog, and drizzle for Bristol Bay, and clouds, rain, and showers for much of the southwest interior up across Norton Sound, as well as the northwest part of the state. Mostly dry on the east side. Rain and showers for the Panhandle. Intense storm brings storm force winds into the western Aleutians, and that pushes northeastward with hurricane force winds out over the Bering Sea, with increasing wind and rain along the Yukon Delta coast, St. Lawrence Island, where there are high wind watches out for St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait coast, Yukon Delta, Norton Sound for Friday into Saturday, and for the Pribilofs Thursday through Friday, and for the Aleutians tonight. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.